Thank you for joining today. Today, I have a very inspiring interview, an interview of someone who truly knows the definition of the word leadership. Have you ever feel that you are questioning if you're doing the best for those who you lead? Well, let's ask some questions to our guest today. This is a man who knows it all, from being in the army to helping corporate leaders. He knows exactly what to do in that position. Let's welcome Doug Thorpe. Hi, Doug. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Alina. So glad to be here and honored. I feel no pressure here. Know it all about leadership. I'm still learning. That's the one thing. That's the one thing I do know. You got to keep learning.
I love that. I love and appreciate that. Learning is my highest value, so I do. So let's just go into the good stuff. So what did leadership means to you?
Well, leadership does mean many things. I describe to people that I was a believer and a practitioner of servant leadership before it was a thing. And I say that because when I look back on opportunities and situations, when I would raise my hand when an opportunity came open to lead a team, lead a project, whatever, I had this desire to serve and support other people. It never was about an ego trip or some badge or accolade or anything. And, I spent some years in the military, and of course we got ribbons and decorations for campaigns and things of that sort. But that was never part of the scope for me. The question was, how are these people that I may have responsibility for, how are they going to succeed? And that was always top of mind to me.
So what I hear you saying is the part of being a leader is very humbling because it's a great deal of responsibility to those who you are guiding or leading into being successful on whatever they're doing.
Right.
How is specifically your leadership roles or the story of your life has impacted your personal life as a father, for instance?
Well, not to go too deep into it, unless you want to, but
let's do it. This is intimate.
I share with a lot of people. But really, the early development for me was I was the only child of a hardworking single mom who quit her day job to start a business while I was still in school. And that was many, many years ago. And, business and the economic world were radically different than they are today. But nonetheless, she had the personal pride and belief that she could do better with her own business. And she did. And there was a spirit about that kind of got implanted in me. But in parallel with all of that, the other thing my mother did very strategically was to begin surrounding me with mentors. Since my dad was out of the picture, and just for the record, he died when I was 2 years old, so that's why I never knew him. She surrounded me with mentors, and I got used to the idea of having a mentor or several. And I carried that with me when I went off to college. One of the first things I did, I identified 2 or 3 campus leaders that I thought I could learn from. And I simply asked them if I could be a student of theirs and in a mentor type relationship. And I've done that my whole life. I've always looked for that kind of additional support and coaching, if you will, for what I felt I might need to do if I was experiencing something that felt like a gap in my own understanding or learning. I would seek out a mentor that was proficient in that area and spend my time with them until I felt like I could understand the challenge. So,
It seems that the word entrepreneur has been injected in your life at a very young age. How specifically this guidance or mentorship from your mother guiding you into and teaching you in her own way, exemplifying what a leader and an entrepreneur is, impacted your life at a later time to make decisions on your own decisions and leadership?
Well, I think it started impacting almost immediately, even though I might not have realized it specific at the time. And what I mean by that is when I went to college, well, first let me back up. I grew up in San Antonio, Texas. And at the time when I was a young boy, there were 5 military bases in San Antonio, and some of that's been consolidated now. But my point being, there was a heavy military influence in everybody in the whole community. And I aspired to think about making the military a career. So I was fortunate to be awarded an Army scholarship to go to college that created a commitment that I was going to have to go on active duty afterwards, which I did. And I really, at that time, trying to think practically and logically, I thought, well, I'll put in 20, 25 years and then I'll think about what I'm going to do. But truly, what I think I did experience was, as I got on active duty, and I will say for the record, I thoroughly enjoyed all the opportunities and training I got, but I realized somewhere, probably in my subconscious, this was not real entrepreneurial. It was pretty rigorous, pretty structured, pretty straightforward, and I probably wasn't a great fit for that environment, truth be told. As a lieutenant, I had an operation that was a little more business oriented than a very traditional. I mean, specifically, I don't want to be mysterious about it. I was a support officer on my base, and I was assigned to run the bachelor officers' quarters, which was effectively a large hotel on the campus. We had 740 rooms. I had a whole staff of what you would think of at a hotel establishment. And I got to run that business fairly autonomously and independently, but my entrepreneurial bent kind of went against some of the regulations, and I kind of pushed the edge quite a bit. And never got in trouble, and certainly never went to jail over it. But I was making the best of every opportunity I had in running that operation, and senior officers recognized it. It became a little bit of a joke that I'm not going to get to do that if I go somewhere else in the military, So I decided after my official commitment was up that I was going to go ahead and get out and go into the civilian world. And I went to work for a large regional bank. And using my business degree, which is what I had gotten in college, I turned to the banking world, and I stayed there for really about 25 years.
That's great. During the time that you were in banking, and that's a subject that I definitely am very interested to talk about, what do you learn about money during that time?
Great question. I learned, number one, I learned that everybody has their own idea of money.
Yes.
And what I mean by that, I when people ask me to elaborate, what I'll say is there was a situation. We had a businessman who was president of a big company. The company was in trouble for different reasons. Nothing illegal or immoral. It was just markets had moved against him. And the company was basically going under. And he came into our office one day and said, I'm on the brink of being destitute. I have, my company's going under. My personal wealth is suffering. And we kind of looked at him, and he had about $5 million in personal money, nothing related to the business, but personal money. And we're kind of going, really, dude? Do you think you're destitute with $5 million in the bank? Okay. And then not long after that, a very nice, demure, unassuming, not real flashy lady walked into the lobby. Some might have even thought of her as a bag lady, off the street. She cashed a check that somebody had given her for $300, and she practically danced out of that lobby. She was so happy, so thankful, joyful, just, her day was made. There was no end to the future as far as she could see. And I had those two moments cross my radar in about a 48-hour period. And that's when I said to myself, you know what? All this thing we do with money it's different to everybody.
Yes, I love that story, by the way. Definitely, I have an appreciation about money stories or the psychology of money, probably even unique like everybody else. But I love the parallels of what money means and represents, right? And definitely, let's start with the fact that we all have a relationship with money. Now, there is, moving from that there is a relationship with money that all we have. And you're coaching with entrepreneurs. Do you see specific patterns, not just during the banking, but in your coaching? Do you see any different patterns about do you see any connection between the individuals that are able to succeed more in money, or do you see any patterns? Have you realized any patterns around that?
Specific patterns, I would say actually not. I think if anything, what I've discovered in working with entrepreneurs is that there's a wide range there as well. Maybe not as specific as the bag lady versus the business owner. Mm-hmm. But for instance, I had a client who owned a small business who called me and said, I want you to come in and help me with my company for a while. And so I showed up and we talked about what was going on and what he might want to do. And we made arrangements, and I showed up the first day to, go to work. And I said to him, all right, now that I'm here, let's talk about what do you want this business to be? Where do you see this business going? And his first word to me was, I don't want to lose any money. And I did the same thing that you just did. I said, what? I think that's a given. I think that's table stakes. Seriously, what do you really want to do with this business? And he said, I'm serious. I don't want to lose any money. I said, well, okay. Don't want to lose money with 3 people and 5 customers, or 100 people and 500 customers, or, what are you really trying to accomplish here? And he did not have an answer for that question. And the company had already been up and running 6 or 8 years. So he was doing something well. And I never could get him to think about the business like an opportunity to, he wasn't an old man by any means, and he had quite a long time left to potentially work. But it was like, well, what do you want to get out of this? Do you want to have it be valuable so you can retire one day? And, is there any thought of that? He had nothing. He had absolute no vision, no nothing. And that's probably the most extreme that I've run into. Because normally when people start a business, they either have a passion about what they're doing, the product or the service that they're working on, and something about that is going to propel them forward, or they do see an opportunity to build wealth, and they have a target that's going to create this lifestyle for them down the road up and into retirement. And sometimes a person has both, but
Yeah.
I've never seen one to be totally void of not having either one of those under consideration.
What do you perceive is the biggest struggle for a new entrepreneur? And and that there's a step where they know they're doing something or they made it, and there's a step where they're still struggling to just be at that level of feeling accomplished. What is it?
It's a great question, and the way I've come to talk about it, and I saw this in a lot of my banking customers, there are 4 fundamental stages with an entrepreneur's life and the business they create. There's a startup phase, and that's everybody working 24/7 to try to make it go. It's scratching, it's clawing, it's trying to get up there. There's a grow up phase where you've got some business. You now need to turn attention to stabilizing the business. You're past the chaos of startup. You've got some volume, you've got some revenue. Now you need to start standardizing process and procedures and maturing the way the business runs. Only after you do that can you move to stage 3, which is scale up. You can really push for bigger volumes, bigger growth. And then when that happens, you come to stage 4, which is really something I call the enterprise phase. You're kind of a big deal now. You've got market share. You've got a reputation as a provider of whatever it is you're doing. You've got some momentum. You've got some things going, and there's probably a little more complexity to how the business works. You might have layers of management. You might have facility growth and differentiation, and so that creates some complexity that you didn't have in the earlier stages. So a founder, CEO, needs to be able to grow and pivot at each one of those phases. Mm-hmm. Because if they stay in the startup mode, but the company has gotten to the grow up or scale up phase, the CEO is probably still micromanaging and touching everything, which is starting to create bottlenecks and constraining the business so that it's not going to take its natural growth. It's kind of like putting a bucket over your tomato plant when it starts coming out of the ground.
A great example. It's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. It's only going to be so big, and that'll be it.
In your experience, when entrepreneurs start a business, usually how far they go before they know they're going to continue or they just stop?
Well, I think you can turn to, there are statistics. The Small Business Administration puts out some statistics, and I haven't looked at those in a while, but what I recall last time I looked at them, it's a high number of companies. I think it's 85 or 90% don't make it past the 5-year mark.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of that probably is for different reasons, but I can tell you again from my own banking experience, a big percentage of that is every bit attributed to the owner-founder not making the right decisions that they need to be making. Okay. The company could have grown and could have survived beyond that 5-year mark if the founder had made different decisions.
What is the most common decision that entrepreneurs fail to make to grow in the given time?
I think it starts, and this is a hard one to overcome. It starts with trying to get real specific as you feel the need to start growing a team, identifying the right people for the right jobs.
Delegation.
It does come down to delegation and that kind of authority, but even just defining the right jobs and knowing the right people, because often what happens in startup mode, you get friends and family to come work for you.
Of course.
And because they're willing, they're helpful. Maybe they even gave you some money to help start it up. So they wanted to do something. Well, they might have been fine in the startup phase, but when the company starts growing up, and like I said, you need to mature process and procedure. Maybe Uncle Bob is not good for that anymore. He was a good generalist. He could manage the warehouse, or he could drive the truck or whatever. But now that you really need something as kind of maybe an operations leader, Uncle Bob might not be your guy anymore. And a lot of founders won't make that separation at that point. They'll hang on and try to make the best of it.
Have you ever helped someone to deal with that specific situation?
Oh, hundreds of times.
For those, which means there are right now some people listening to this being in that specific situation. So what would be the advice that you give them?
It starts with the founder needs to get their head straight about the role they've got. Are they founder? Are they lead investor? Are they family member? And those are like three different boxes. And if you err on the side of being family member, you're not going to want to disappoint Uncle Bob and Aunt Sally, and you're not going to want to have a bad Thanksgiving next year. You want to think about all that. So you make excuses for moving forward. But if you're operating as chief investor in the business, you're saying, I'm not going to get the return for my money I expected if I keep doing this. I got to go. I got to move.
Yeah. Let's say there's an individual there with a great idea and no money, but is ready. And she or he knows that this excellent idea is going to generate revenue and is inspired to do that. What is the advice that you will give to those individuals?
There are, and thanks for asking that question. I think it's an important one. There are so many great incubators now. That's kind of the technical term people use. There are programs that a lot of the universities use. Some of the community colleges have programs where they have opportunities for aspiring entrepreneurs to bring their ideas and pitch them to a group that might be potential investors. And these can be angel money investors, smaller dollar, private individuals, not formal private equity or venture capital funds, but just private investors that are eager to support business ideas like that might come together. So somebody that's got that idea, I would tell you, go online. If there's a university nearby or a community college nearby, start there. A lot of times bigger cities have these incubator organizations. In Houston, for instance, for many years, we had the Houston Technology Center, which was a hub of, it was a place to gather, and these aspiring entrepreneurs could actually get space to do their work and do their thing. But through the center, they had opportunity to meet angel investors as well. And it was a way to connect good ideas with money that might be available.
How about for those young, I'm going to say young men. This is prioritized men in this conversation. There's a young man who is 18 and he is wondering what to do, if go to school and, go and do a career in administration because has a dream of have a business, or enroll in the Army and do that first. And is questioning. And I know these decisions are very individual, but you have certain experience that you can share with us today. What would you say, or what would your wisdom share?
Well, first, before I give you the answer to that question, let me throw in a third option that is in there. There are trade schools also in between all of that. You can go to the 4-year college program or even the community college associate degree route, call it college.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are the trade and vocational schools in between that actually give you schooling and certificates, but teach you a trade like plumbing or electrical or heating and air and auto mechanic, all of that. I'm going to editorialize a minute. Our world is changing, and the jobs that are represented by the trades are going away in many ways because the people that have been doing that work for a long time, they are entrepreneurs. Your local plumber is an entrepreneur. He's not a big corporate guy.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those companies, your plumbing, electrical, painters, roofers, all of those services that you need in your community, they are run by entrepreneurs. And those entrepreneurs, most of them are baby boomers. And they're getting ready and they want to retire. So they have businesses that they want to sell. And maybe they don't have a son or daughter that wants to take it over. So there are opportunities for people to step in and buy an already cash flowing business that might already be at that grow up, scale up stage,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the owner now is ready to exit and move on. And for a young person thinking about long term, I think there is a huge opportunity right now to seriously consider picking a trade, going to one of the trade or vocational schools and getting your certificates in that specialty, and then go out and look for one of those companies that might be up for sale. And you can use the Small Business Administration. You can get funding to buy one of those businesses with a very good structure and a very good rate. And that's probably another whole discussion for another time. But I think that's a consideration people are, not always thinking about.
What if there's someone who's thinking about opening a business and doesn't know exactly what to do? All they know is I was born to be a business owner, an entrepreneur, but I don't know what to do with that. I don't know. I'm not sure what inspires me to sell or produce, etc. But they perceive that that's what they meant to do.
I would tell that person, I go back to my story about see if you can find a mentor, see if you can find somebody that is already owning and running a business that you can talk to. Go meet with them and ask them to share with you a little bit about the experience of operating that business and kind of get a plan for what you might have to learn and learn about and get into. And ultimately, you can go to night school and you can get business classes about how to do accounting and how to do marketing and how to do sales and all that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Those are good, informative, but there's nothing like talking to somebody that's actually doing it and hearing their stories of what they had to figure out.
In this new era of AI, a lot of generations rely on the answers or the communication. How do you perceive this is helping or hurting the entrepreneurial part?
I tend to be kind of bullish on AI. I've been using AI in my own work for a couple of years now, and I love it. I think it. I think it's helpful. I think it's. I think the big caveat is you can't just use AI like an advanced Google search. You have to prompt it with some deeper questions to help give you the best guidance and best information to help And back to the original question, what do I need to know about running a business? AI is not really. It will give you an answer to that question, but that it's not gonna mean much.
That's true. Can you tell me a little bit or a lot about common sense?
Yeah, that's kind of my theme. My own podcast is called Leadership Powered by Common Sense.
Yes.
And I've been an advocate of common sense leadership approach. And what I mean by that basically is just we don't have to make it complicated to sound smart. And that's what I see in a lot of business. I tell the story. I had a client once, and I'm not going to name names of the company or anything, but let's just say it was pretty high technology stuff. And I asked him a question. I kind of said, so, okay, with your team, how do you go from A to B? And I got this long, elaborate, packed with scientific jargon and market technology stuff and all these things. And I shook my head and I said, you didn't answer the question at all. And he said, yes, I did. And I said, no, I wanted to know the straight line from A to B. And you took me all the way over across and up and down all 50 states. I didn't want to know that. And he kind of looked at me and I said, look, let me say it this way. Let's agree right now, as long as I'm your coach, I'm going to call you the smartest guy in the room. We're just going to agree on that right now. But that said, I don't want to hear any more about how smart you are because you've proved it. You're already the smartest guy here in the room between the two of us. I'm going to give you that. But when I ask you a question, I want a simple, common sense answer to it. Can you do that? And it took him a while. He could not do it right away.
What do you think that happens? What are individuals trying to prove, or what is the struggle with that?
I think I call it programming. I think it starts in school. I think many people go to school, they get loaded up with all this knowledge, book knowledge, which is good and valid. I mean, if I go to see a doctor, I want him to have read all the books. I'll agree on that. I don't want to hear that he skipped class in medical school. I want to know he was perfect attendance and read all the books. But when he's giving me an answer for what's wrong with my body and the situation, I want it to be easy to understand. I want to just, tell me the nitty gritty. Don't cover it up in all the technical terms. I don't need to know the scientific names for all the parts of my body. Just tell me what I got to do to, get this pain gone. And I think that's what happens. I think people get programmed with the book knowledge, and even the environment they may work in at their company, everybody keeps speaking at that level, and the clarity gets messed up or sometimes trampled by all this technical stuff when you just needed to know how to get from A to B.
That's true. And what it really means, common sense in every other individual, not business.
I think common sense is trying to find a relatively simple solution for what you might otherwise have a big struggle trying to find. I see a lot of people that have a tendency to overthink a decision. They're told, okay, you need to go, your refrigerator just burned out. You need to go buy a new refrigerator. Well, they'll spend weeks reading reviews, talking to people, going to stores, doing things. And it's like, there's only so much of that adds any value to what you really need.
Correct.
And yeah, read a couple of reviews. I agree. I think that's good information nowadays, but you don't need to read 500 reviews.
How can a man find the balance between being an entrepreneur and being a father?
That's a great question. And what immediately comes to mind is a tool I use in coaching. It's a popular tool. A lot of coaches use it. It's something called the Wheel of Life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a circle that's a little bit of a pie chart diagram, and different versions have different. Some of them are 6 slices in the pie, some of them are 8 slices. But the idea is each slice is some aspect of your life. It's your business, your family, your relationships, friendships, spiritual health, mental health, physical health. And you need to strive to have a good balance in that wheel. Your level of effort, your level of commitment, time, energy, emotion that you're investing in each one of those slices needs to be relatively the same all the way around the circle for you to have a healthy, balanced life. If you're putting too much emphasis on your business, something about family, children, maybe even personal finances or personal health, more importantly, is going to be cut short, and you're going to end up having some problems in that area, and it's not sustainable.
How about those individuals whose life or profession looks excellent on paper, but inside they have pain, they're suffering because of, family or other things at work or something that they're not able to handle? How do you help those individuals?
I think that the thing that's really important, and I had to do this in my own career. There are times when those struggles get very real. At first you think they're small and meaningless and not something, but then they turn into something. The quick answer is you got to go get help, and help comes in many forms. You can certainly seek professional counseling if you need to, but help can also come in the way of a healthy gathering of other men. And over my life, I've been in and out of a lot of different men's groups where we were able to come together as brothers and share our issues and concerns and our burdens and get support, encouragement, and even help for dealing with them. But the bottom line is you can't stay quiet about it. It can eat you alive if you don't do something to get it out, get it addressed, get the help you might need to get past that.
What do you perceive there's a greater deal, or how do they handle the fact that man has a bigger expectations of succeed in life professionally, for instance, even nowadays that there's an expectations of equality, still man is giving less breaks about being successful. How do specifically would you advise men to deal with that if they're struggling to get there?
Well, I think I go back to the basic thing. I believe it starts with the programming. Where did you get that idea? Where were you told that you had to be the king of the hill? Mm-hmm. Where did that come from? And what is the basis of that? And there's a big difference between being naturally competitive and giving your best effort and trying to do the best you can. There's a big difference between that and becoming a workaholic, because if you're not doing 60 or 80 hours a week, you're some kind of failure. It's like, who told you that? Where did you get that? And I see it in a lot of my own coaching. Sometimes I see clients who are chasing some ghost. Somebody planted something in their head. And again, from a coaching standpoint, we talk about limiting beliefs. Mm-hmm. And people get programmed with limiting beliefs. It can be something like, as a small child in school, you were told you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, you're not fast enough, you're not strong enough. And those are horrible messages that no child should ever be subjected to. but nonetheless, it happens. And sometimes they're indirect, and it just gets translated a different way. And the child grows up to be an adult, and now they're chasing some vision of something they think they're supposed to be. And they've never really asked the question, why do I think that? Why do I believe that? Why is that important? And I think if you're struggling with that, I think it's very important to get the help, whether it's professional with a counselor or a coach or an advisor, or just through a solid group of other men who maybe have been there and they've overcome that limiting belief. They've figured out how to get past that and have a healthy view of competition and achievement.
During your coaching times, you have helped multiple individuals in their businesses. You shared a story earlier about an individual who said, I just want to lose, right? Any money. So what is the most crazy, outrageous, weird case that you have heard, seen, or worked through of someone that is afraid to lose something and made a decision based on that?
It's an interesting question. Gosh, Elena, I mean, along that line, the one I started explaining was probably the most significant. Well, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking there's some other parts to that story. I can't share them publicly because I'd break confidence with what I had to do with that client. Mm-hmm. But I think what I would leave you with is the idea that if some attitude or some expectation of your own performance is in fact what's holding you back and creating conflict and turmoil in your business, again, it's so critically important that if you really want to keep doing the business, you've got to get some extra help. You've got to get somebody that can advise, consult, mentor to help you find a better way to move forward. Because quite honestly, most good business ideas can work, but they fail because of the founder not being able to process everything in a healthy and productive way in the long run.
Most of the most wonderful ideas could be in the cemetery. It's just buried with the individuals who brought those ideas. You're right.
Right.
In your personal life, you have so many stories, helped so many people, have done so many amazing things. What has been, if you would like to share, the biggest struggle you have, and have you ever been depressed?
Yeah, I don't mind sharing. I think yes, I've been depressed. I discovered in trying to remember the exact year. I was about to turn 40. I'd already been in business and at work for quite some time. And I had my own form of anger problems, and it did sometimes create a kind of depression, but I kind of dipped in and out of it. It wasn't constant. Mm-hmm. And I finally, I was struggling in a marriage I was in, and I finally went to get some help for all of it. And I went on a 1-year journey of regular weekly attendance at multiple sessions of things, gatherings of people, some counseling involved, and mostly group work. And honestly, it was kind of a broader, general 12-step program. We hear about 12-step with Alcoholics Anonymous, AA. This program I was in wasn't specific to alcohol, but it was just 12 steps in general. And I did that for about a year and did some work. And my anger was rooted in losing my dad at 2 years old when I was angry that I didn't know who and what he was, and I felt like my life would have been radically different if I had known him. And I had all this other very false programming that I was living by. And the program I was in was a faith-based program, and I was pointed to the scripture that I remember very well to this day. It's 1 Peter 1:16. That says, 2:16, you were not redeemed with perishable seed like the futile ways of your forefathers, but with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. And that's not a common memory verse that people draw from the Bible. It's a very obscure verse, but for me, it hit home. This hope and wishing I had about what my dad could have provided me was probably futile, because he was no better than his dad had been, who was no better than the dad before him had been, and so on and so on. So why was I aspiring to know that? And coming to that realization, just kind of all of that anxiety and everything that was driving at that point just went away.
You're such a great conversationalist. I love it. Your stories are amazing. You just want to ask more questions. Which next question is, do you perceive that men in general, and you just share your part of the story, but have you seen in your men groups, some men might not be as fortunate to have that support system yet. Do you perceive there is a struggle when a man grows up without a father?
Oh, I do. Yeah. Yeah. There are so many things that come out of that. And, but real quick, before I gloss over it, the one thing that's also true is even if they had the father and then the guy was in the house, there wasn't a divorce or anything in the house, that wasn't necessarily a good environment either.
That's true. That's true. So
it's an interesting dynamic, and I know they've written movies and books about that father-son relationship, and it comes up in a lot of stories you see on TV and in movies. But I think it's safe to say the struggle is real. That they've yet to write a good book on parenting. When you're a young person and your spouse gets pregnant and that little baby comes home for the first time, you're sitting there holding it, looking at it, and basically saying, "Pardon my French, holy shit, what am I going to do now?" You don't know. You just don't know. And you go on this journey of trying to figure it out, and you make mistakes along the way. I mean, I've been guilty of saying things to my kids at different ages that I've had to go apologize for, and I really regret saying, and I've tried to make the best of having said it. But nobody in that parenting role, male or female, is perfect.
So what I hear you saying, even if the kids are young or grow up, you still haven't figured out what you're doing or trying to figure out what you're doing.
Probably not. I'm not convinced I've figured out what I'm doing yet.
That's what you said at the beginning. I'm still learning. Don't give me a title, Elena. Wow, I love this. Okay, so the next question.
I'm just passing through. That's what I say. I'm just passing through.
Next class, right? Next learning. How about being a grandfather? What is that?
It's been great. It's everything everybody said it was going to be. I've got 7 grandkids, and it's a joy, and you see them growing up. And my wife and I intentionally we spend quite a bit of time with our grandkids. We're at a place in life I get to pretty much pick and choose how my schedule runs. I'm still very busy. I'm still very active in the business world, but I schedule time intentionally, and in fact, they're very well behaved. I've got three of them over here right now at the house, and but they're off. They're off with my wife, and they're doing some other things in the other end of the house, and then they're just, this is one of our days of the week. It's just a routine. They come over and they spend about as much time at my house as they do at their house. So,
Did you grow up with a grandfather?
I'm sorry?
Did you grow up with a grandfather?
Yes, I did.
And what was your grandfather to you?
Oh, my.
Wow, look at that face.
I've got several stories, and because there were a couple of grandfathers I had exposure to. One was technically a step grandfather, but he was 100% German national, and a great, very wise man. And I was the youngest in my family was not large. It was my mother had a sister, and my dad's family, because of his death, we didn't really know them. I mean, that was just there was a separation there that we never pursued. But this was my mother's husband, so it was my mother's stepfather, this German, and my two cousins, boys that were quite a bit older than me at the time. The Grandpa Otto was what we called him, and he had a tradition. When the boy turned 16,
Ooh.
you go in the woods with a bottle of whiskey, a block of chewing tobacco, and a cigar.
I like it.
And you consume, however long it takes, you consume all of that on this journey, on this passage. Well, both of my cousins went through that, came home deathly sick,
You're like,
sworn to sobriety for the rest of their life.
It worked. It worked.
It worked. I mean, I'm being real. It worked, and they, in adult years, I talked to them about that, and they swore, that was the cure. And I didn't make it to 16 before he passed, so I didn't go through that indoctrination. But that was a very old world, old school approach to things. But it sure worked.
What is the biggest lesson that you learned from your Army days?
There were many. I guess I've never thought to put them in a priority. I do very much admire and respect a chain of command, and probably more than anything, I think from the military, I got really keen on proper preparation.
Mm-hmm.
We had the 7 Ps, and there's different varieties, but the phrase that I was schooled by was proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance.
Wow. Just give me a whiskey and a cigar, because I'm confused still.
I've kind of embraced that when I'm challenged with a project or an opportunity. I kind of immediately go to the planning stage and start thinking about optimize, streamline. And I'll tell you how extreme it is for me. If my wife gives me a list of errands for Saturday to go run around, do all, this is 6 or 8 things. Mm-hmm. First thing I do, I map it out in my mind. What's the most efficient route? Like, for instance, if one of those things is pick up ice cream at the store, guess what? That's the last stop I'm going to make. Because then I'm coming straight home with the ice cream, right?
Correct.
I'm not going to get that first and go to 6 other stops and let it all melt in the car. So it's my brain is just wired to process that way.
This is very interesting. Yes, this is very interesting. So if you if there's any 17, 18-year-old who's actually thinking, is this the right move for me going into the Army? What would you say?
Well, I still am very pro-military. I think of a young person, and nowadays, thankfully, I use the word thankfully, it's open to young ladies as well. It's not just limited to men. It is still to this day a great experience. There is learning to be had, there is discipline to be gained, and I think, as I understand it, enlisting today in service, there are still some perks that you can get. You can get schooling paid for after the fact, and there are still some very lucrative opportunities.
Absolutely. How about your banking times? Banking is a whole different monster. Like you said, you observe the difference, how everybody has a different relationship. For you, individually, what was the biggest learning your biggest takeaway from those, besides learning that everybody has a different relationship with money?
Well, the biggest thing I learned was when I joined Texas Commerce Bank, my original bank organization, I had no idea how banking was supposed to work. I had studied it a little bit in business school, but just at a very high level. I understood accounting and balance sheets and financial analysis and all that, but how a bank really worked, I didn't know. And so I went to work at my bank. I learned how it worked, or at least how we worked. And we were very successful. We were a very profitable bank. We had a discipline and a very rigorous budget and planning discipline, which again tied well to my Army training. And I just assumed that's how all banks worked. But later, when I left my regular job in the bank, I became a consultant and did some work with the FDIC. And the work we were doing was going into banks that had failed. And we were the cleanup crew to restructure all of the residual assets of the bank that had failed and either restructure credit facilities or package loans and sell them. A lot of cleanup work. And that's when I discovered that not all banks work like mine did. There were practices and procedures that other banks operated that from my bank where I started, it would have been no go. We wouldn't have ever done anything that way. And so I began to appreciate the intentional way that our bank was structured and the policies and procedures we had to run and operate with that allowed us to be a high-performing bank and a well-run organization.
It seems to me that a lot of the things that you learn and the things that you coach had to do a lot with having a structure, policies, procedures to be more efficient in the steps and the time and performance.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I go back to those 4 stages of growth for the entrepreneur. When you get into that grow up phase, that's when you have to invest time in establishing policies, establishing process. If you're going to deliver something, you're selling some widget, how do you produce it? How do you package it? How do you mail it? How do you track it? How do you ship it? How do you allow for returns? And all those things are process and procedure oriented that have to be streamlined so that you can achieve a certain profit margin. Because as soon as your process gets a little out of control, it costs you money to operate.
Absolutely.
And you're eating your profit margin, and you're doing it for your health. You're not doing it making money.
Correct. And if you don't do it, then it's going to affect your health, right?
Well, and if you're losing money, as we used to joke in banking, you can't make that up with volume.
Since you mentioned that, what is one of the biggest things that you found in coaching and helping individuals that affects their health? what occurs in their businesses that directly affects their health?
Well, in the modern business world, there is so much pressure on business leaders because the velocity where business operates now, the speed of business is much greater than it's ever been. And things are moving fast. There's constant change. I was just taping another episode of my show right before this, and the lady I had on as a guest, we were talking about change, managing change, and the chaos that it creates. That is wearing on an individual. It's kind of the idea of trying to find some way to be resilient and be able to find a way to recharge your own battery, and the analogy I use, I go back to the military.
Yeah.
Even the military in big battles, we rotate troops off the front line to give them rest and restoration.
Yeah.
Because you can't sustain the intensity of battle indefinitely.
That's true. That's a great example.
You have to have new energy out there on the front, or at least refreshed energy out there on the front, or else you can't maintain the intensity of your battle. So, and I think that's true in the business world, either individually or even as a team. There's got to be a break where people get to recharge and renew their own personal energy.
That's definitely so. Yeah, assign, just like we put in the schedule, meeting with the bank. Our health has definitely have to be a priority in the schedule.
Right.
All right. So, how are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Sure, let's bring it
one
in.
thing or two, and then you answer whatever comes first.
Okay, let's do it.
We're gonna go we're going in a horse, really fast and having fun. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Horses. All right. So, opportunities.
4.
Support.
Opportunities for support.
Oh, pardon me. The word is opportunities. That's it. Just whatever comes to you.
Oh, my. Well, I guess the thing that did flash quickly to my mind, opportunity is, I go back to what I said. My wife and I, we're at a station in life where we schedule intentionally for what we want to do. And like we're going on a cruise with some dear friends in March, and we've got the grandkids regularly when we want to do it. So we take every opportunity to optimize our time.
Cool. All right. I'm going to say one or two words and answer the first thing that comes quick. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Military.
Great experience.
Support.
Necessary, critical.
Mentors.
Likewise, necessary and critical.
Authority.
Tricky.
Leadership.
Likewise, tricky, but doable.
Money.
Each decide their own.
Common sense.
If you don't have it, get some.
Conversation.
Needs clarity.
Inspiration.
Vital to moving forward.
Challenge.
Can be overcome.
Coaching.
I think necessary for growth.
Entrepreneur.
Wonderful opportunity with the right mindset.
Intimacy.
Say again?
Intimacy.
Intimacy. Okay.
Intimacy.
God's gift and a real blessing.
Business.
Challenging, but can be wonderfully exciting.
Army.
Great experience. Best service, by the way.
Fatherhood.
Again, blessing of God and a real opportunity.
Grandfather.
It's an honor to be one.
Identity.
I'll say tricky,
Fear.
unnecessary,
AI.
helpful,
Support.
necessary,
Sex.
facts,
Life. Oh,
FACTS, facts.
no. SEX. Sex.
Oh, sex. Also, gift from God and a real blessing.
Pardon me. I didn't know you were asking me. Connection.
Connection, meaningful.
Network.
Likewise, very important.
Society.
Crumbling.
Life.
It's a journey.
And love.
Oh, a wonderful, wonderful thing.
All right. I think we got them all.
Okay. All right.
All right. So before we close this episode, I would love for you to open the mic one more time and please give us some wisdom about anything that you would like to share to our audience.
Oh, goodness, Alina. Such a big opportunity. Number one, let me say thank you for this. This has been a great time. I've really enjoyed it. I hope it's helpful to people. I guess I'll come back to something we talked about several times. I think if you're an individual out there, particularly a man in your own business or family situation, and you feel like you're struggling, don't stay alone. Reach out, get some help, find a group, find somebody to talk to. There's a contact page on my own website. I'll be happy to take your call. We can just have a chat, no obligation, no fee, no charge. But start the discussion with someone you feel like you can trust and get that thing, whatever it is, that lump in your throat or the knot in your gut. Talk about it. Get somebody to hear you out and give you some ideas on getting past that. We are conquerors. We can get past anything.
That was beautiful. I really, truly enjoyed this episode with you. What an honor to have you here, and your answers so deep. I love how beautiful you answer, and you were here. Thank you, and well, to all those of you who are listening, I hope that this was as inspiring as it was for me. Thank you, Doug, and I look forward to seeing you again.
I appreciate it, Alina. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.